What's up everyone, it's Merlin here again, and welcome to the next class video, I suppose, if you've watched any before. If not, welcome to the first class video you're going to see on my channel. In this one I'm going to go over the Conduit. Basically, like all the other classes, you get your 4 scrolls, 3 ones that you can level up, and 1 passive. The passive one in this one is called Lightning Fast. You increase your sprint by 20%, but it breaks whenever you take damage or you start to attack, but only briefly, thankfully. Next one you can level up is your Arc Flash. Your lightning bolts have a 25, 50 or 75% chance to leave behind a ball of lightning that strikes nearby players, which is pretty nice. We'll go over how that can be used later on. Your next one, Charged Rune. Again, you can level up this one up. After using your rune, fire arcs of lightning towards the nearest 2, 3 or 4 people for 30, 45 or 60 damage, but it does have a 3-second cooldown, so it's not completely overpowered. A lightning rod, basically you become immune to lightning storms and gain 5, 10 or 15 mana each time you are struck by one, which is pretty nice. It's similar to the Forged in Fire, I think, or Born in Fire, where instead of getting health, you gain mana. So first up, your Lightning Fast. It's pretty handy for getting around the map, real easy, but as soon as you start to attack or get attacked, you've lost your passive, which unfortunately isn't an ideal situation. You'd want to be able to keep your passive as long as possible. You can pick Conduit up pretty much off the bat and get into action pretty quick, which is nice, or you can get to a spot where you know that there might be some decent loot. Like if you know the map well enough, you can know where there are good loot points. You can get there fast or faster than other people, which is pretty handy, giving you a slight edge at the very beginning of the game. The Arc Flash scrolls or ability, they can be used as some sort of tripwire or planting traps for going into fights, which would be pretty handy. Basically, you could set them all around the field that you know you're going to be fighting at, and just wait for someone to sort of trigger them and then teleport away, or you can use them as a haha, I know where you're going, lay them down where you reckon they're going to land. Well, but it does have a bit of a lower chance earlier in the game. The further you go up through the game, the more likely they are to land, but unfortunately there is always the chance that you don't get any to land at all. You can also use them as sort of a backup, sort of cover your butt in solos anyway, or you can use them in squads to notify the whole team that someone is coming up behind you. Charged Rune can be quite useful when you're using ruins quite often, similar like in the case of using something like Blink, or maybe getting up close with a teleport. If you wanted, you could even combine it with having a Toxic Gauntlet equipped. Since it's practically just a shotgun, you could teleport right up next to someone, get that instant sort of 30, 45 or 60 damage, and then just go ham with the Toxic Gauntlet, which would be always nice, you know, getting that surprise damage straight off the bat and then just laying into them. And lastly, again, there's Lightning Rod, which can be quite useful if you're getting into a bit of a sticky situation where you keep running out of mana. Where you can just set down a lightning storm and keep constantly, well not constantly, but quite occasionally recharge part of your mana. Though for people who aren't super familiar with the mana costs and recharge rates, you wouldn't really notice it all that much, but the immunity is definitely noticeable. And standing in something that's charging things electrically, you could leave yourself open to being stunned by a couple of different combination effects. Now, while all the abilities by themselves are quite solid, they don't really, you know, have much synergy between themselves without like having to, well not without having to, but you can always synergize them with other gauntlets. Like I mentioned, using the surprise damage from an Arc Flash in combination with a Toxic Gauntlet, but not a whole lot outside of that, maybe even perhaps going up towards a Poison Cloud and electrifying that, but then again, you are leaving yourself open to being stunned. Of course, this class has come about from the use of a Lightning Gauntlet, and that has gotten a couple of changes with the version 0.18 that came out last week. I believe it was this day last week. Basically, the lightning spell-based cast duration is going to be increased from 0.8 seconds to 0.96, and it kind of makes it a little bit less spammy. So the footage you're seeing in the background, although looped, unfortunately there wasn't a whole lot of the highlights that I can use, because not a whole lot of utility goes into, not a whole lot of usage, goes into using the Lightning Gauntlet, which is unfortunate. It's a decent gauntlet, especially in close to medium range. They're also increasing the delay between each bolt being fired in a lightning spell. It kind of makes tracking a little bit more difficult, simply because, you know, there's going to be a slight bit more of a delay between the bolts going out, and it won't give you as much of a pinpoint accuracy with where your enemies are. They're also reducing the projectile spread, so it's while in midair, so it's increasing your in-air accuracy, which is always nice, especially with the amount of vertical space used in Spellbreak with that air gauntlet pushing you up into the air that you've seen in a couple of the highlights. The combinations that you can do with other spells aren't really affected at all, so thankfully you can still do those. Basically, you can electrify both watery and icy surfaces that you can see in some of the highlights, as well as poison clouds. I don't believe that there's really much else you can do. Simply put, you can stun enemies with those, and I'm not sure if you've seen how long it lasts in the highlights, so I can't really say just here. So that's pretty much all that I can really cover on the Lightning Gauntlet and the Conduit class. So thanks for watching, and good luck out there.